everybody, and welcome to using ChatGPT and OpenAI to write scripts in Maya, Houdini, and Windows. In this lesson, we're going to take a look at OpenAI and ChatGPT, and we will use that tool to create scripts in Maya and in Houdini. And as a bonus, we'll take a look at a batch script I wrote in Windows that automates my render scenes out of Maya and V-Ray. And we will use the ChatGPT to create our own automated script. Okay, let's get started. I'm here on the OpenAI website, and we see their slogan here. Join us in shaping the future of technology. Here, introducing ChatGPT at the top. If we click on this, that brings me to my homepage I have at this address. chat.openai.com/chat. I've already created an account, but what is ChatGPT? ChatGPT is an AI chatbot. But for this video, let's use the ChatGPT to create some scripts in Maya and Houdini, as well as a batch script that will automate our rendering. This is a good use for the ChatGPT. And during this video, you'll understand some of the limitations, some of the capabilities. It's good to note that I do have some experience in programming, which helps, but I also know a little bit about the programming side in V-Ray, Houdini, and Maya, as well as Python and Mel. So if you wanted to go into this completely blind without any programming experience, then it probably won't be of any benefit. Okay, here I am in Maya. So I can create a camera. I have V-Ray installed as my renderer. I can select the camera shape. If I go to Attributes, V-Ray, Physical Camera, now I've turned the camera into a physical camera. And at the bottom, you know this gets checked here, and we can control such things as the F number, the shutter speed, specify focus isn't checked, depth of field isn't checked, but we can check that. We can also enable the focus. You'll see the focus distance I can change. As you can see here in my display here, I have distance from camera. That means if I create a cube here, you'll see now the distance from my selected object, distance from camera, is 3.277. And if I zoom out, that number changes. So if I wanted to focus on my cube, switch to my camera and just frame it here, you'll see it's about now 14.47. Type 14.47. I'm going to add a V-Ray dome light. I'm going to select the camera and choose no exposure. Now I'll hit render again, and there we have our cube. If I zoom in a little bit and hit render, you'll see our cube is out of focus. That's because I moved the camera and the focal plane is still at that number. Now, in order to create this focus distance to link to the distance from the camera, you would have to go into the node editor and you'd have to create some networks that will connect this to maybe a null object. So then you'd have to create a null. And well, yes, I did write my own script for that. It allows me to select the camera and add a V-Ray depth of field controller. And all that does is it just programmatically and automatically creates this link between the focus distance, a distance between, and this null object controller. That's great, because if I want the focus distance to be farther away now, you'll see the focus distance is linked to this depth of field controller. And this took me a little bit of time to write and program by myself. You see here I'm in Cosmos plugin, but if I click and edit my script, you can see some of the Python code that I wrote. It took me a couple days, probably quite a bit of hours, to write this, but I want to ask the ChatGPT if it can help me develop this same script from scratch. So I will delete the camera and the controller, and I'll just have the cube here, and I'll zoom in a little bit. Okay, let's go through the steps. It's important to note when using the chat, if you provided information, it helps greatly. I wanted to add something in the beginning to help the chat know what I'm going to be doing. So I said, according to the Chaos V-Ray documentation in Python, the V-Ray command is a multifunctional one, and it's used in a variety of ways. One, adding and removing V-Ray attributes to do that. And I just provided a simple example. The reason why I gave it that example is because it might not know about attributes and V-Ray attributes, such as physical camera, because that depends on whether or not V-Ray is installed with Maya. So I wanted to provide this to it in the beginning to know that we're going to be talking about V-Ray and Maya, and here's an example of how to add those attributes. And that's fine. Let's get the chat started. We see it replied here. Yes, this command is part of the V-Ray. Good, good, good. And I said great, because I want the chat to know that it was successful in understanding what I was talking about. Now here, let's get started. Watch this. Create for me a Python script that makes the currently selected camera a physical camera. Great, and it gives me a Python script. But wait a minute. I've noticed this right away. This V-Ray camera physical doesn't seem right. This I know doesn't seem right, and I also know that you need to add this on the shape node. So here I says, I think you need to get the shape node of the camera to check if it's a camera. And it says, you are correct. So it understands, and it even updates the script for me. I'm not going to copy any of this code yet because I know this is wrong here as well. So I'm talking with it, and I tell it the V-Ray camera physical is incorrect. And it agrees. It says, you are correct. I apologize for the mistake. But then it makes this one called V-Ray camera type. So I say, you're wrong. And I did a little bit of research, and I know that it is this attribute right here. So I said, you're wrong. It's actually that attribute, V-Ray camera physical. It says, I apologize, and it agrees. Now this in total took me about maybe 5 minutes to get this far. And this code right here is correct. And I'm going to copy the code. Now back in Maya, I have my camera selected, and I open my script editor, and I'm just going to paste that in, and I'm going to hit enter. You see it says success camera 1 is now a V-Ray physical camera. Is that true? If I select the camera and I go attribute V-Ray, you see physical camera is checked. And down here at the bottom, I get the V-Ray extra attributes. That's great. The AI generated for me a working script in just under 5 minutes. So next, I wanted to see how far can this go. So I let the chat know that the code is working. So it knows that that is good code. Now let's give it a thumbs up. Okay. Now I said, instead of adding the attribute to the selected camera, write Python code to first create a camera and add the attribute to the new camera. And yes, it says, sure, here is a script that creates a new camera and adds the V-Ray camera attribute to it. So let's try it. Let's copy the code. You see, I just have one camera, but let's paste the new code and hit enter. Oh, it created a second camera. And on that second camera in the shape node, look. The attributes of the physical camera is checked. So far this script development is progressing pretty quickly. I tell the chat, great. Now I want to add more. I say on the camera node, there is a V-Ray physical use DOF attribute. That's the depth of field attribute, as well as the specify focus attribute and the focus distance attribute. So I want to be a little more clear as to the direction of where I want the script to go. I let the chat know that these are the attributes that I want to change. And if I go to Maya into the camera shape, you can see it's this one, specify focus, this one, focus distance, as well as this checkbox, enable depth of field. And it says, sure, here's an updated script that creates a new camera, adds the V-Ray physical camera attribute. But notice, and enables the use DOF. It actually knows what the name of it is based on the attribute and the specify focus distance, which corresponds to this attribute, and set the focus distance attribute. Does it work? Let's copy the code. Let's delete both of our cameras and paste the new script in. But notice it's going to change the focus distance to 10 because we haven't linked anything yet. And look what it did. Success. Camera 1 is now a physical camera with DOF and focus distance set. Does it? Yes. Specify focus with focus distance 10, and it enabled the depth of field. So far, this script is coming along and progressing very quickly. I say, great. It worked. Let's add more. Add to the script code to create a locator, and then link the focus distance on the new camera to the distance from the camera to the locator. Do you think it's going to work first try? It says sure, and it gives me the updated script, as well as linking the focus distance on the camera to the distance from the camera to the locator. Is this gonna work first try? Let's copy it. I'm gonna delete the camera, and I'm gonna paste that code here and run it. Oh boy, I see a camera and a locator. But notice it says success. Camera 1 is now a V-Ray physical camera with DOF and focus distance set and linked to locator 1. Here's the locator. Here's the camera. If I go into the camera and I see it, it's connected. And if I go here, it applied a distance between node. That means if I go to Window, Node Editor, you can see here, here's the setup. Here's the camera, here's the locator. It created the distance node and it linked it to the camera's focus distance. Wow! I generated this code in less than 10 minutes. Can we see it work? Sure. First, I have to change the physical exposure to no exposure. That's fine. You notice here I have the IPR, and if I take this focus and I move it, I'm able to focus on the point. So far, the script is working very good. Can I do more? Well, here's the end of my chat. I said, good, this works. And the chat replies, I'm glad to hear everything works as expected. Let me know if you need anything further. Well, actually, let's do this now live. Let's say I want to have enable motion blur checked. Well, if I hover over it, you see it's V-Ray camera physical use mo blur. That's the checkbox. But I want to test the chat out. Let's see if it knows that without providing it information, because I had given it correct information before. Let's see if it's able to have this with new information. Okay, I'll say add to the script code that also enables motion blur on the camera. Okay, let's see if it can add. As you can see, in real time, it's typing. Okay, here it is. It says V-Ray motion blur. Well, I know that's not gonna work. You see, it's V-Ray camera physical use mo blur. So I come into the chat and say, this is incorrect. I think it should be. I let it know it's incorrect, and it lets me know I am correct. Great, okay, let's see if this works. I'm going to copy the code. I can see it uses the correct attribute here. Go into Maya and paste it. It creates for me camera 3. And look, motion blur is checked. Amazing. So as you can see here, I just generated this script using the ChatGPT on the OpenAI website, and that came out really good. And I get to see how it works too, because it gives me correct code. It's also very important to know how to find the attributes and how to find the things that are incorrect so that you can correct the chat so that it knows how to give you the correct pieces of code. Okay, let's try something a little similar in Houdini. I'm particularly new to Houdini, but I've gathered enough knowledge about it where I can use it to do simple things. For example, yes, let's just say I have a camera. You see here in the view that you have the focal length, the aperture, and sampling tab here, the shutter time, the focus distance, the f-stop. But this focus distance parameter here in Houdini works the same way as the focus distance in Maya. And so I want to do the same. I want to create a camera and a locator linked to this focus distance. But can it do it in Houdini as well using Python? But here I can go to Windows and type in Python source editor. And here I get the Python window, sort of similar to Maya, where I can paste in some code and run it. Okay, I'm going to go to new chat and I say I'm using Houdini and Python 3. Write me a Python script that creates a camera and a null. Also add an expression to the camera's focus distance parameter that links the distance from the camera to the null. Okay, great, here's the response. And it gives me this code, and I can tell this is Houdini based, so I'm in the right direction. I don't think I see anything wrong with it, so I'm gonna copy the code, come in here, Houdini, paste the code, and hit apply. Oh my goodness, it created a focus target null and a camera. But is it linked to the camera? Under view, oh, you see here in focal length. But it needs to be focus distance. The parm should be focus, not focal. Okay, it gives me this code and it changed it to focus. Let's copy, Let's delete these nodes and paste the new script and apply, and it does it correctly, sampling. Now if I select the focus target and I move it, you see it doesn't change here. So there's something wrong with this expression. I think there is an error. Okay, the chat writes back, it apologizes, it doesn't want to use length, it wants to use distance. Okay, I did a quick search and I said distance is not working, but I said to use v-length and v-origin in the expression, and it gave me this. Well, I'm going to pause it right here because I know that this is doing a good job, but it's not doing a good job in creating the expression down here. But I do know what is going to make it work. So I'm going to paste that code, and I know that these channel strings aren't necessary. I know that the code should look a little bit more like this. What's awesome is the AI did 95% of the work for me. If I hit apply, now you can see I can just select this and move it and select the camera. And you see now that the focus distance is linked to this null. Because if I select the target, you can see that the number moves. And isn't that great? Look, I can add it to my shelf. Camera autofocus. Well, what more can this AI do? AI can be a very useful tool if you are familiar with the information first. If you go in it blindly, you probably won't get the output that you're expecting. Take a look at this AI portrait of Lucy Liu in the style of Leonardo da Vinci. Is some of the possibilities you can create having knowledge of both Lucy Liu and Leonardo da Vinci's portrait styles. You see the AI generated this image. I think it looks amazing. Okay, you want to see something absolutely incredible? Well, sit back and relax and enjoy the next part. So a long time ago, I wrote this batch script in Windows that allows me to sort of automate my renders if I want to export out of Maya. And I apologize, it looks like a mess. Basically what it does is it uses Maya's render and V-Ray's render. I have it set the project here, and I can give it names of Maya files. And I also have a function down here to create a new render based on the project, the name, the start end frames, the camera, and if I wanted, I could even add as many layers as I wanted. And this script took me a very long time to make. Let's see how fast the AI can make a script similar to this. Here I have a blank batch file, and it's located here in this directory on top. Now what I want to make is I want to make a small batch script file that says, okay, if I drag and drop the Maya scene onto the file, it'll just render it. So let's see if I can make the AI do that. As you can see here is my empty batch file, and I'm going to open this Maya file. So here in Maya, I'm just going to open. Just the same as before, just a cube and the V-Ray light dome, and there's no camera. But in my V-Ray render settings, just set a couple things up, such as multi-EXR rendering and the file name prefixes and the renderable camera. Now I want to write a script that says if I take my Maya file here and drop it onto this batch file, it will render out the animation. Okay, let's see if the AI can do this. All right, I'm creating a new chat. I'm telling the chat I'm writing a batch script for Windows to render V-Ray scenes out of Maya. I want to incorporate render.exe and V-Ray.exe. I want to be able to drag and drop my Maya file onto the script to start it. The script should ask the user to provide start frame, end frame, camera, and render layer. Create this batch script for me. Here you can see it says, here's a simple Windows batch script that incorporates render.exe and V-Ray.exe to render the scenes out of Maya. It already provided me with a script. It looks right. I see, okay, this is the drag and drop operation. I know, okay, this is inputting the information. Great. Setting the output. Okay, good. And here is my render.exe. I don't see V-Ray.exe. And I also notice here that I don't have this path available. So I need to make it create the path. I say, I like this, but let's change it. Create the script to also use V-Ray to export the Maya scene as a VR scene file, and then renders the VR scene file using V-Ray.exe. Okay, good. I can see the code here. Here's the render out of Maya, and here's V-Ray, but I notice it's using 3ds Max. So I say use V-Ray for Maya, not for 3ds Max. And it says, sure, here's an updated version of the script. I say, okay, make sure you create the output path folders too. And here you can see it creates the output folders as well. Now let me just copy this code and paste it here. And I'm gonna save. I have my language set as batch, but I notice there's some things wrong. It's using my render from Maya 2022, but in fact for vray.exe, it's using the path for my Maya 2023. So I'm just going to select this. I'm going to paste it for Maya 2022. Here's the vray.exe. And I also notice this VFN. I know that that's wrong. And I also know this PROJ is wrong. And I know that when you're rendering out of render.exe, the Maya file should be at the very end of the script. You can see why knowing the programming a little bit is very beneficial. So I say invalid flag VFN, and it changes it, but it uses OFN. I say invalid flag OFN, and I say you should use export file name and no render. It says I apologize for the confusion. And it gives me this updated script. And I see, yes, export file name is there, no render is there, but this PROJ Maya file is incorrect. So I say you should not use PROJ, and the Maya file should be at the end of the argument. All right, and it gives me this updated version of the code. So far, this took about 15 minutes. I'm gonna paste everything there and just make sure it has my fix. So this code right here, generated in less than 15 minutes. By discussing the program with a OpenAI chatbot, I was able to get this code, but let's see if it works. Here I have my Maya file, and here's the batch file. If I take my Maya file and I drag it on there, you see I get this, enter start frame. Let's say I want to render frames 1 to 5. I have to enter a camera name. I don't like that. I have to enter a render layer. I don't like that, but we can try to fix that later. And yes, as you see, it didn't work. I'm going to fix the slashes here, and I'm also at the end just going to add a pause. I noticed here in my C directory, it does create these two folders. Let's try that one more time with the pause. I'll enter the frames 1, 4, perspective, and master layer. Okay, it liked that. It just got the backslashes wrong. So what it's doing now is it's working. It's turning my Maya file into a VR scene file, and then it's using vray.exe to render out the VR scene file. And it looks like it's working because here it is rendering the frames. Press any key to continue, it finished. V-Ray scene output. Oh my goodness, it created that scene file, and it should have rendered all 4 right there. I am very impressed. And in fact, I want to delete this part, the image file. I want it to render according to what I have in my settings. So I'm just going to remove that. But now I want something a little more dynamic for camera name and render layer. Here I say make it so if the camera is null, the default should be perspective. And if the layer is null, the default should be master layer. And here's where I stop. I'm going to copy this code. I'm going to paste the code here. And I'm going to edit just that part right here. And if I save it, I should have a full working script completely generated by AI. But of course, I needed to go in there and fix a couple little problems, but that's just because I have prior computer programming knowledge. I'm going to come in here, delete these frames because these came out as PNGs. Let me fix my script by just adding that in and just type in EXR. Or I can go into the Maya file and just create something in here. I can set the project here before I render, or I can set the project in the script. Drag it in, enter the frames. Let's do 1 to 6. Again, this is 95% generated by the artificial intelligence and just edited a little bit by myself. I was able to, in less than 15 minutes, create an automated rendering script. Okay, it looks like it's done rendering. Yes, press any key to continue. And here you have it. Our EXR is rendered. How incredible is that? Okay, did we learn anything today? Yes. How amazing it was that we were able to have the AI generate for us 95% of this code right here, as we use this in sort of an automated rendering setup. Well, while it's not quite like mine, this one did take me a very long time to write, and I even used some functions here, But this one is just absolutely amazing in that it got me 95% of the way there, and I just had to edit a little bit to create the code, to create a final setup here where I can just take my Maya file and drag it on top of the batch file, enter in a couple parameters, and boom, I can automate my rendering very easily and quickly in just a script that I developed in under 15 minutes. Well, thanks for watching, but I do have some bonus content here. This is a picture of a bird here I took near my apartment. It's a very nice picture, and the bird is very nice. So I decided to go to the chat and see if it can make me a song. I wrote the chat. I named an eagle Sebastian because he is so awesome and cool and deserves a super awesome and cool name. I call him Seabass for short. Write me a clean but funny rap song for kids that tells the amazing tale of Sebastian and his girlfriend Sarah. And this is what the chat gave me. Meet Sebastian, the eagle in the sky. He's the king of the mountains, reaching high. With his sharp talons and piercing eyes, he's the ruler of the skies. Sebastian, Sebastian, the eagle so fly. He's got a girlfriend named Sarah. Oh my! Sarah is a beauty with feathers so bright. She's the queen of the forest, a true sight. Together they soar, through the clouds they glide. Their love is strong, it's a ride. Sebastian, Sebastian, the eagle so fly. He's got a girlfriend. Her name is Sarah. Oh my. Verse 3. They hunt for fish in the sea so vast. Sebastian's nickname is Seabass. With Sarah by his side, he's the catch of the day. Their love is real. It's here to stay. Sebastian, Sebastian, the eagle so fly. He's got a girlfriend. Her name is Sarah. Oh my. So next time you see an eagle in the sky, think of Sebastian reaching high. With his love Sarah by his side, their love is strong, it's a beautiful ride. And I said rewrite the chorus, and so it did. Sebastian the eagle in the sky with his sharp talons and piercing eyes, he's the ruler of the skies, oh my. Sebastian, Sebastian, the eagle so fly. Here's the new outro. So next time you see an eagle in the sky, think of Sebastian reaching high. With his nickname Seabass, he's one of a kind. Sebastian the eagle soars in our mind. Thank you everybody for watching and participating in the video. I hope that you've learned something. Remember, artificial intelligence is something that should not take over, but rather something that maybe we could use as a tool to help and develop and solve problems more quickly. Thank you very much, and have a great day.